Bear Grylls. Chapter 5. When I was young, my parents bought a small cottage in the Isle of Wight. From the age of 5 to 8, I spent my school holidays on the island. For me, it was heaven. Life on the island ranged from being wild, windy and wet in winter to being more like a holiday camp in the summer, full of young people of my age, many of whom are still my closest friends today. I felt for the first time liberated and free to explore and be myself. The other great thing about the island was that my grandpa Neville lived barely 400 yards away from our house. I loved him dearly. He was gentle, kind, strong, faith-filled, and fun-loving. And he loved huge bars of chocolate, despite always angrily refusing them if given one as a treat. Give me a second. Sorry about that. Without fail, they would be gone within minutes. Once you walked away. He lived to 93 and did his daily exercises religiously. You would hear him in his bedroom, mumbling, knee bend, touch toes, reach up high and breathe. He said it was the key to good health. Not sure where the chocolate or buttered toast fitted into that regime, but hey, you gotta live life as well. He died seated on a bench at the end of our road near the sea. I miss him still today. He was in all respects a wonderful man. Growing up at home, was always eventful, although it was definitely chaotic. But that was typical of my parents, especially my mother, who even by her own wacky standards was and remains pretty offbeat. In the best sense of the word. In fact, I tend to sum my family up with this quote. Families are like fudge, mostly sweet with a few nuts. My mother and father had met when Mum was 21 and Dad Mickey was 29. Theirs was a pretty crazy love affair until eventually they eloped to Barbados and got married. Mom in many ways was a product of her parents' divorce. She had a deep-rooted fear of being left, and that often made her overly protective of Dad. So for us to go out climbing or sailing involved Dad and me having to sneak out, which of course we both loved. I guess it made every outing a mission, and we had masses of those missions in my early years. But as I got older and could start to plan my own expeditions, however small they were, I felt sad that I didn't get to do more with Dad, just us two alone. Dad's father was a hard-working, dedicated, but pretty stern army officer. He reached the rank of commander. As a kid, I was always a little scared of Grandpa Ted, and the scariest thing about Grandpa Ted was his big dogs. On one occasion, when I was age 6, one mauled me as I sat on the floor trying to play with it. The dog bit me straight down the center of my face, and my flesh split down my nose and lips. Oh, that's disgusting. I was raced to hospital for stitches, where my mother decided duty nurse was taking too long, so took the matter into her own hands and did the stitches herself. She did a great job, by the way, and unless you look closely at my face, you wouldn't notice the scars, although my nose does actually look pretty wonky. If Grandpa Ted was very stern than my own father when he was growing up, then Dad's mother was sterner too, still. She had a fierce reputation not only as a great character, but also as someone who did not tolerate foolhardiness. and foolhardiness was my own father's middle name. I remember hearing endless stories such as him pouring buckets of water over his elder sister and her new boyfriend as he peered down on them from his bedroom window above. In many ways, Dad never really grew up. It was what made him such a wonderful father, gentleman, and friend. And in turn, I never had the ambition to grow up too fast either. Dad himself had never really experienced much intimacy with his parents. In contrast, as a father himself, he wanted to be a cozy father to Lara and me, and he was the best. For that I am so grateful, and despite losing him all too early when I was age 26, the truth is that I could not have had better preparation and training for life when I received, through his example, an ex-Marines commando who was a politician for over 20 years and was a loyal, hard-working backbencher MP. But what he inspired to most in life was to be close to his family, and our lives were so much richer for it. I guess his career was being a good dad. I remember, for example, the time at prep school when I was chosen for the under-9s rugby team. Well, to be more accurate, I was chosen to be linesman, as I wasn't good enough for the actual team. Anyway, it was a cold, miserable winter's day, and there were no spectators out watching, which was uncommon. Normally at least a few boys or teachers would come out and watch the school matches, but on this cold, blustery day, the touchlines were deserted, except for one lone figure. It was my dad, standing in the rain, watching me, his son, perform the linesman duties. I felt so happy to see him, but also felt guilty. I mean, I hadn't even made the team, and here he was to watch me run up and down waving a silly flag, yet it meant the world to me. When the first half whistle blew, it was my big moment. On I ran to the pitch, the plate of oranges in my hands with Dad applauding from the touchline. Lives and lives are made in such moments. See you tomorrow.